existence of all government, as well as the invasions of external enemies who menace the conquest and destruction of Rome. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you for that response. The next question will come from Roger.
Mr. Hamilton, do you believe the power and authority of the Vice President should be increased to a level that is comparable to that of the President?
Do I believe the power and authority of the Vice President should be increased to a level comparable to the Presidency? Thank goodness it's not taking place right now. Decision, activity, secrecy, and dispatch will generally characterize the proceedings in one man, in a much more eminent degree than the proceedings of any greater number. And in proportion as the number is increased, these qualities will be diminished. Energy in the executive can be destroyed in two ways, either by vesting power in two or more magistrates of equal dignity or authority, or by vesting it ostensibly in one man, subject in whole or in part in the control and cooperation of others, in the capacity of advisors to him. One of the weightiest objections to increasing the power of the Vice Presidency is that it would tend to conceal faults and destroy responsibility. It would become impossible amidst mutual accusations to determine who to blame or who to punish if illegal activities or negative measures were to occur. Therefore, I believe the President should rule the country and the Vice President should lay in wait. Thank you.
Next question will come from somebody that Alexander Hamilton may not be quite familiar with because he represents the television media. Andrew.
It's weird things. It's full on inside a wooden box, I guess.
Thank you. That's a lovely color of shirt.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton, my question for you. Do you believe that the power to grant pardons should rest solely on the President?
Humanity and good policy conspire to dictate that the benign prerogative for pardoning should be as little as possible fettered or embarrassed. The criminal code of every country partakes so much of necessary severity that without an easy access to exceptions in favor of unfortunate guilt, justice would wear a countenance too sanguinary or cruel. As a sense of responsibility is always strongest in proportion as it is undivided, it may be inferred that a single man would be most ready to attend to the force of these motives. Therefore, on these accounts, one man appears to be a more eligible dispenser of the mercy of the government than a body of men. It is not to be doubted that a single man of prudence and good sense is better fitted in delicate circumstances than a group of entire people, which may plead for and against the remission of the punishment. We need one man to grant pardons. Thank you.
The next question will probably be asked by many of us, but we'll let Roger be the spokesperson.
How do you like having your face on a piece of currency?
How do I like my face on a piece of currency? Is there anyone here who has a $10 bill? May I please see it?
Yeah, there's one.
Ah, look. I look delicious. Yes. Wouldn't all of us, here, take it. Wouldn't all of us want to have our face on a piece of currency? An amazing thing. Well, you see, I'll give this back yet. Yes. You see here my portrait on this $10 bill was created by John Trumbull, and it is considered the most famous portrait of myself. I was the first Secretary of Treasury at age 32, And unlike others today, I had an economic vision that was brilliant and successful. I feel that my face on currency is a grand honor as being the founding father of American capitalism. I do. I'm also buried on top of Wall Street. Many are buried on top of Wall Street right now. But along with that, a lasting tribute of me on the $10 bill is a wonderful thing. George Washington, wonderful. And then some man named Lincoln on the 5. Thank you. I'll sign that later.
Now to perhaps a little bit more serious inquiry asked by Charlie, representing another form of media that Alexander may not be quite familiar with, the radio.
Mr. Hamilton, should religion play an integral role, or any role for that matter, in modern politics?
To all those dispositions which promote political happiness, religion and morality are essential props. In vain does that man claim the praise of patriotism who labors to subvert or undermine these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest foundations of duties of men and citizens. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and cherish them, nor ought we to flatter ourselves that morality can be separated from religion. Thank you, sir.
The next question is something that is probably on the minds of many of us when we walk into the voting booth on November 4th, and R.C. McBride will be asking that question.
Mr. Hamilton, in regard to taxes, should the tax burden be imposed primarily on the wealthy?
Well, R.C. Equality and certainty are the two great objects to be aimed at in taxation. The great art is to distribute the public burdens well and not suffer them either first or last, to fall too heavily upon parts of the community, else distress and disorder must ensue. While distributing the burden of taxation in a balanced manner is a worthy principle, an equally important principle is the ability to pay. When revenue is needed, it is best obtained from those segments of the population with substantial funds to draw upon. Requiring people of lesser means to bear a heavy tax burden only decreases the money they have available for basic necessities of life, and also increases their irritation with the government. Taxing items not vitally needed for life and well-being, such as wine, distilled spirits, coffee, and tea, places a smaller burden on the wealthy. Revenue generated from such luxuries lessens the necessity of directly taxing land and personal property. In times of national distress, especially with the threat of war looming, direct taxes may be unavoidable. During such times, taxes may be levied regardless if you're rich or if you're poor. Happy it is with the interest which the government has in the preservation of its own power coincides with a proper distribution of the public burdens and tends to guard the least wealthy part of the community from oppression. Thank you, R.C.